Welcome to Staring into the Abyss, coming at you live. It is our 150th episode. I'm your host, Richard Gerlach. With me, as always, is Matt Brandenburg.
We did it, folks. We succeeded.
And with me in the other corner is Villain Mist.
I would like to thank God for this opportunity. But really, I just want to thank Satan because he is the one who actually pulled this through.
I had to break it to you, Villain. God's dead. And
I know that's. I mean, that's why it's Satan. You know, Satan all the way.
Hail Satan.
At least he allows me to do what the fuck I want.
Did you guys see the new Ghost music video?
No.
Do you guys like Ghost?
I think they're pretty cool, but I just haven't watched a video.
Yeah, I enjoy them. It's but I'm not into the music news that much.
They're releasing a cover EP next month, and the lead single off it is them covering Genesis's song "Jesus He Knows Me."
Nice.
And the video has this priest giving the sermon in the beginning and being greedy, collecting everybody's money. And then the rest of the video is him going into the city and just cocaine and hookers with all the money that he gets from the parishers. And it ends with him on his knees and a bunch of people come out of the shadows and they just masturbate onto his face. And then he just goes back to church the next day like it's no big deal.
I mean, I assume they went this safe route. It didn't go into the actual route.
Yeah, they go the safe route.
Yeah.
It is on YouTube, but
oh my gosh,
it's a very wild and very fun music video. But the same stuff now always just reminds me of Ghost because that's kind of their whole shtick.
Yeah.
But for our 150th episode, we decided to just kind of give a rundown on some of our favorite stories that we've either covered in this podcast or just right outside this podcast that we want to just fill you guys in on, give you some reading recommendations, and in general have a good time.
Yeah.
Got a lot of fun stuff.
I think so.
But before we do that, let's give our weekly rundown of some media. And I finally got to see Evil Dead Rise.
Well, finally seems like it's been out for months. It's only been out for a week.
Yeah, but
it just came out this Friday. It
came out the other week here. But I'm used to going the night of or the weekend of to see the movie. But I had to wait a little bit before I got to see it. But I went Monday night to see Evil Dead Rise, and I thought it was a really good time.
Yeah.
I'm jelly.
How was the grater scene? That's the big thing.
I thought the cheese grater scene was overhyped.
I heard it was super short.
Dude, it's a second. Two seconds.
That was used in the trailer, I assume, then.
Yeah, did the trailer show the cheese grater going down the leg?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, then.
And in this internet age, a 1-second clip is all we need to climb onto and ride the meme waves.
Yep.
Really, all it is the Deadite shoves the cheese grater on the shin of a character, and then just runs it down the shin, and you see the raw skin that's peeled off for a second, and then the camera cuts.
I would have. My depraved mind probably would have not wanted to see more, but at the same time probably would have.
That being said, this movie was very gory.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope so.
Very gory.
Mm-hmm.
Literally by the end of the movie, our characters are just covered in blood and entrails.
As one should be in an Evil Dead movie.
Yeah.
There's also a homage to the Shining elevator blood scene.
Oh, nice.
Nice. I was gonna ask because, Army of Darkness, they have the geyser of blood, so I'm glad they kept that up.
Yeah, I will say this isn't as kind of funny as the Bruce Campbell Evil Dead movies.
No,
and it plays a bit more serious.
So it's more in the vein of the 2013 movie, right?
Yes, and if you like the 2013 movie, you'll probably like this.
Yeah.
If you didn't like the 2013 movie, you probably won't like this.
I mean, I enjoyed that one. I mean, but it was hard to separate the thing. Like, is it a remake or is it not? Is it a reboot?
Yeah.
So
it was hard to separate that while you were watching it.
So you know how in that one it's kind of the weird remake reboot, maybe same world of the original.
Yeah.
This one is kind of, it takes place in the same world as the 2013 remake.
Yeah.
But it takes place in an apartment building.
Yeah, in a complex.
Apartment complex. So which is about to be condemned, by the way.
Mm.
And near the beginning of the movie, there's an earthquake that used to be a bank. Well, the apartment building used to be a bank. The earthquake breaks apart a piece of the parking garage. The son goes down to be curious, and he finds a bunch of lockbox.
Oh, you mean like a human, not like the sun, as in the thing in the sky.
No, I mean, I'm not the thing in the sky.
I was like, I'm even more intrigued.
He goes down to see what's down there, and he sees a bunch of lockboxes. And in one of them, he finds the Book of the Dead with vinyl records.
Nice.
And so he takes it, because why the fuck not?
Yeah.
And they mentioned that there's 3 books in this movie. So the idea is like, book 1 was the book they found in 2013. This is book 2, and there's a 3rd book out there somewhere.
So we're probably getting another film.
Probably. This did really well, so odds are we're gonna get another film.
Oh yeah.
In space.
Yes.
No, it should be fucking campy and let it happen at a camp.
The main plot of the movie is mostly the mother of this family gets possessed by the Deadite and becomes a Deadite, and is trying to pretty much murder her family, and the family's trying to survive and realize there's no way to cure their mother, so they have to find a way to survive the night while she's also killing other people in their apartment complex.
Oh, okay.
Spirits that are possessing them.
This is what I wanted to ask about, because is it about a mother who apparently, you see in the trailer, she has children. So my question is, because I don't know if they're gonna go that depraved route, are the children dying?
Or
yes.
Will they die?
Spoilers?
Maybe tell me after the recording. But yeah, because I kind of assumed they would go that route. But I won't have anything confirmed. I'm probably gonna see the film anyway, tomorrow.
All I'm gonna say is, by the end of the movie, there are less characters alive than how the movie began.
Okay, that's a good sign, because it was funny. One of my coworkers, who's like a woman in her late 50s, who for some reason likes to hang out with other coworkers who are twice her young age, but that is a whole other topic. And she was like, "Oh yeah, they were thinking of seeing this movie. And you're the horror expert, so what do you think?" And I'm like, "They're like, well, I mean, do you like gory shit?" And she's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Because this is gonna be gory shit. I'm talking about blood and viscera and everything." And then I mentioned and it's probably gonna happen to children. So I don't know if you can handle that.
Here's how the movie opens. The movie opens. You're in a cabin by a lake, and this kid's flying a drone and being a dick, and this girl's like, "Fuck you, you're being an asshole. I'm gonna go check on our friend inside. She's kind of sick." So she goes inside. Her friend's sleeping, and she starts reading a book. And her friend starts reading the lines that she's reading out loud in a demonic voice. And then she looks over, and her friend literally grabs her hair and fucking pulls her scalp off.
Nice.
Nice.
This is the first 2 minutes of the movie.
Okay, great.
So like right away, we're getting into the carnage.
Good.
And the Evil Dead Rise title screen is one of the best title screens I've ever seen in a movie in a while.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna try to see this movie tomorrow.
And literally, by the end of the movie, our surviving characters are drenched in blood and gore.
Mhm.
And the finale involves a chainsaw and a
Of
wood
course.
chipper.
And a wood chipper. Yay.
And a wood chipper.
Nice.
So you're in for a very bloody time. That being said, if you want the campy, fun, kind of funny Evil Dead, you're not gonna get that here. Although some of the lines she says are so fucking cruel, they're kind of hilarious.
I mean, there's
There's,
one
like-
there's one sentence from the trailer that like she says with her dead-eyed voice, "Mommy's with the maggots now," and I was like, this is such a campy ass sentence. It's funny.
There's this part of the movie where she calls her children titty sucking parasites.
All right. Yes.
So they're not afraid to go there. Is what I'm saying. Like
Good.
they're definitely going where they need to go, and I would recommend it. I think it's a good movie.
Good.
Also, on the other end of the spectrum, I finished City of Dreams by Don Winslow,
Nice.
which is the second book of the Danny Ryan trilogy, which is Don Winslow's last trilogy of books. And the first book takes place in Providence in the 80s, and it's about a mob war between the Irish mob and the Italian mafia.
Yeah.
Danny Ryan is an Irish kid. He marries into the Irish mob. He doesn't really do mob shit. He's just kind of like there. And he occasionally does stuff because he's married to the boss's daughter. So he has to do favors for the boss. But he's kind of like a peace broker between the Irish and the Italians because he's more of a neutral party. And the three books are modeled after the Aeneid. So if you've read the Aeneid, you'll definitely see similarities between the plot of that and what happens in the books. But when I say mob war, I mean mob war. Things go tits up fast in the first book. And so the second book finds Danny having to leave Providence for his life, and he settles in California. And when he's in California, he finds out they're making a movie called Providence. And that movie's based on the mob war that he was involved in. And so he begins to schmooze up some people to get involved in the production of the movie, which then gets him in the eyes of the mafia again, and also gets the Mexican cartels involved. And Danny Ryan sees himself between different organizations of people, all who have issues with him and want him gone. I will say most of the book, I was reading it, and Don Winslow is one of the best style writers I've ever read. Like, if you want to study style, Don Winslow has some of the best style in fiction. Like, hands down, incredible style. But most of this book, I'm reading it, and it just reads like the middle book of a trilogy. So most of the time, I'm like, okay, this is good. It's fine. I'm enjoying it, but nothing's wowing me, you know?
Yeah.
Then the third fucking act comes, and I was hit on the side of the head with a fucking brick because that third act was fucking amazing.
Oh, that's
And
awesome.
like it just kicked my ass, and I couldn't stop thinking about how it ended. The ending scene alone is one of the best endings I've seen in like a crime book. I'd compare it to Empire
Nice.
as like a middle ending. It ends on just this downbeat note where you're like, fuck. How are they gonna get back from that? You know?
Yeah.
And the next book is called City of Ruin. City in Ruins. and it comes, I think, March next year, and that'll be Winslow's last book because he's retiring after it.
Oh, that's crazy.
But I know that one, I think, mostly takes place in Vegas, and it'll be kind of the final showdown for everything. So it'll be interesting to see how he wraps it all up in the end. I don't think Danny's going to live to see the end of his story, though.
No, probably not.
And then the only other thing I'm reading right now is, well, two more than I'm done. I started Small Mercies by Dennis Lehane, which I can get into how much I love Dennis Lehane, but I'll just put it this way, like, Abyss, where I am with horror and my writing and everything, I wouldn't be where I am as a reader without Dennis Lehane. Like, Dennis Lehane is the author that got me back into reading many, many years ago. So every time a new Lehane book comes out, I gotta buy it. I gotta support my boy.
There you go.
And so Small Mercies is his newest book, and it takes place in Boston, specifically Southie, Dorchester. It's placed in Dorchester, 1974 kid. And, it takes place in Boston, 1974. And this history is well known if you live in Massachusetts, but if you're not from Massachusetts, it's a bit more surprising. But in 74, Boston and Massachusetts still had segregated schools. There are neighborhoods that were all black kids that were going to schools that were being less funded than the schools that the white kids were going to. And so you can't have segregation anymore. A lawsuit happened, and Massachusetts just went on it, and they're like, okay, we got to bust the kids. The black kids are going to go to the Dorchester schools. The kids in Dorchester are going to go to the Roxbury schools and the Mattapan schools. But they didn't really make a system. They just said, this has to happen, and gave the families 3 months to figure out how to get their kids enrolled and how to get the whole thing going. And if they weren't able to do it in time, they would start getting fines from the state. And so you have a bunch of parents. I mean, and it's 74, it's Dorchester. Everyone's fucking racist. Like, everyone's racist. And so they don't want their kids going to the black neighborhoods. But also, with the black neighborhoods, they don't want their kids going to the other neighborhoods, mainly because of racism. But it's like, why am I going to send my kid across the city when there's a school right down the street for me, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like that whole issue's is happening. And our main character is an Irish woman named Mary Pat. She's an alcoholic. She's a chain smoker. She'll bust your lip if you give her shit. Like, she's a woman you don't want to fuck with. And her husband's left her. Her son died of a heroin overdose. And all she has left is her daughter. And at the beginning of the book, I should also say, while all this is happening at the time, Boston has one of its worst heat waves it's ever had. So it's 74, racial tensions are high, and there's a massive heat wave. This is just bad for everybody. Right?
Yeah.
And so at the start of the book, Mary Pat's daughter, Jules, goes out for the night. When Mary wakes up in the morning, Jules is still gone. But there's also news that a black man, 20 years old, was found dead on the subway tracks the night before. And that man was the son of one of Mary Pat's coworkers. And she can't find her daughter. And she thinks there's some connection between her daughter and the death of this black man. So she begins digging to try to find out what happened to my daughter, what happened to this man, like, how did all this happen? And she begins to understand the effects that her racism had on her and her family, and she's kind of unpacking her own bigotry as she's trying to find out what happened that night.
That sounds intense.
It's really intense. It's really good. It's very Boston. Like, you can just hear the Boston accents coming off the page. as you read this book. But it's a very intense read. I'm about halfway through right now, and I'm loving it. I think it's a fantastic book. I also got the new Judith Sonnet novel. That's going to be my next go-to.
Nice.
Which is an animal attack novel where people get stuck in a cave and a landslide happens and they are trapped in this giant cavern with human eating snails.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
Oh, I love it.
Very slimy.
Very
But-
slimy.
Very slimy. But Matt, what about you?
All right. Well, this week was a week of reading very short novellas. So a couple things popping up here. First one is Danger Slater's newest book, Little Miss Apocalypse, which if you've read any of his stuff before, you know what to expect, but this is just off the walls wackiness, and I had an absolute blast. It basically, our main character, Elizabeth, she has atomic bomb in her vagina, and it will it like the countdown starts anytime she, let's just say, she gets a little hot and bothered. And so she's in high school. She wants to ask the coolest guy in school, Trevor Sandstone, to go to prom. And let's just say they are from two very different walks of life. She's absolutely bonkers, and he is the coolest dude in the world. He wears his hat backwards. He sits in chairs backwards, and he just, anything that's cool, he does it. So you have this dynamic, and then you also have the gothiest goth boy around, Stevius, who starts hanging out with her, and at one point gets turned into an actual doll. And so, yeah, it's just this absolutely bonkers little story. It reads so fast, and it's just, I had so much fun with it. It's crazy. Tons of references to, 80s high school movies and what that world is like. And it's just, it's awesome. It's really fun. Highly recommend that one. One of the other books I read was Shane McKenzie's Addicted to Death, the Relapse Edition. So this is put out by Madness Heart Press, I think it's called. And this is a kind of an older book. I think it originally came out in the mid 2000s, and then this release just came out this year. And this one, probably like the best look at a zombie thing. And I don't even think they say zombie in the book. So basically, you have a world where the dead are. We don't say the dead word. The dead people are alive, or not alive, but there's zombies wandering around. But as humans, we can eat their flesh, and then that will stop us from becoming zombies. But the problem is, if you eat too much, you become addicted, and then you have to eat more and more. And it's just a bit like a heroin addiction. You're all shaky and scary, and you'll do whatever you want, whatever you can to get more of the meat. They call it meat in this. And so the story doesn't even focus on the zombies, where they came from, when that whole started. This is after the fact. You're following the kind of these mobsters who are running the meat show. So they're processing all the meat, they're giving it away, and at the same time you have people who are so addicted to it that they're willing to do anything to get more of it. And you're also following this brother and sister. The sister, and this isn't a spoiler because it happens pretty fast, the sister's dead, but she can talk. So that's one of the things. The meat and zombie people are like zombies. They don't talk. They don't have any cognitive reasoning. They're just shambling around. So it's sort of a miracle that the sister can walk and talk and be like a normal person, except she's falling apart. And so they go into the city to try to find help, and then chaos ensues. This is not like I know I just brought up Danger Slater, but this is not a fun book. It's very brutal. There is
I was gonna say, she and McKenzie's really fucked up.
Yeah, so be ready. I mean, like, there is anything you can think of.
Is it really bleak?
Yeah. It is. There's no happy endings at all. So this Relapse Edition is like, he's got a short story at the beginning to kind of lead you in, so a little bit of a prequel. Then you got the Addicted to Dead, and then you have like another story in here that's sort of happening at the same time as Addicted to Dead, but it's not really tied to that too much. But that one's like the worst one because you're like reading it, and it's this guy that used to be an enforcer in the big meat mob, but he got so
the meat mob.
he got so addicted to the meat that they had to kick him out, and so now he's just like in a alley, you know, literally willing to do anything to get more meat. And Shane McKenzie has no qualms showing you what that means. And then it just gets bleaker and bleaker as this poor guy's life just gets ruined horribly. But it's super good. I was like enthralled at the same time being disgusted at some of the things happen. There's a lot of like dead snuff films described and shot in this book. And there's a hitman who, like, you know, he doesn't eat the meat. He thinks everybody who sells it and eats it are just trash, but he works for the meat man because the meat man has something on him. And so he's really brutal and has no problem doing horrible things to people, not in any other way except using his knife and really chopping people up. So like it's super good, but like I said, it is brutal and bleak, and it will keep you. He writes at such a fast pace, and the way what I really appreciated in this is all the like backstory stuff, all the things about why this is happening, all is kind of natural in the story. It's not like oh, you're new to town, sit down and let me tell you a story about these zombies and why we eat them. It's just like really natural and gets you in there, and it like really is good. So anyway, Addicted to Dead, I think that did come out this year, and Shane McKenzie's super awesome. I was on a panel with him, and I didn't realize he wrote Bingo Hell. So anyway,
Bingo Hell.
Yeah,
It was fun. That was a fun movie.
Yeah, so that was his. So last one is Tamika Thompson's Salamander Justice, which came out in 2020, and also by the same press, Madness Heart, I think is called. And sorry, I got the hiccups. And this one is sort of a love story, but then there's also like let's say salamanders getting justice, and the way they get justice is kind of by turning people into salamanders, but not in like a fun monstery rubber suit kind of way, and not like in a, you know, kind of body horror. Well, a little bit of body horror, but it's just this really kind of like interesting dark story that's got the like this couple, or like we're following a woman and she's trying to like get in a new relationship, and so you're kind of dealing with that kind of thing, and she's had some trauma in the past, so you're dealing with that too, and all the while you have these kind of salamanders like taking over. So that one I loved it, and that one's like a really quick one. It was like 70 pages, and like I got through it in a day. So that is. Yeah, and like not just because it was 70 pages, it was really interesting. So it's a good read. But yeah, that was Tamika Thompson's Salamander Justice. So I think that is it.
I bet she watched Man in Black and just really sympathized with the cockroach alien.
A little bit, because there is a couple parts, because like our main character, she hates salamanders, and instead of like trapping them and letting them loose, she's like, well, you gotta trap them and kill them. Now, I will say for readers, you don't see any of that, so you're okay. But like that's like her like mindset. You know, if there's a bug in your house, you kill it. If there's a salamander in your house, you kill it. And so like to go to your Men in Black thing, there is like a part where you like get this like note because they sort of take people over, and like you get a note that's probably written from the Salamander's point of view, and it's all sort of that thing like you guys came into our land and you killed us, and you don't even know who we are. Well, we don't know who you are, but we're gonna kill you and all this stuff. So you know, maybe she saw that and she's like, well, I can't do bugs, but let's do salamanders.
Bugs are icky, salamanders are yay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh man, yeah. So that was my wild ride for this week.
What about your wild ride, LeMay?
I feel like I've been deteriorating like this like ever since the beginning of this year because I haven't done a lot of shit at all, and this week was especially exhausting. But I have started on the latest season of The Mandalorian.
Nice.
And
I finished that. Was
okay.
good.
Okay. Would you agree with me if the first episode was a little bit weird?
Yeah.
Or actually like the second episode. It was weird, right?
Which one was that? Was that the
one where they suddenly they switched like to Mando helping Bo-Katan or Bo-Katan helping Mando, and then suddenly they just switched planets and like, oh no, we're in Coruscant now, Coruscant, and we're gonna follow this former Nazi doctor who is trying to rehabilitate in this new planet.
Yes. I really like that one, but that one felt like it, and I have no idea, but it felt like whoever wrote that had just finished watching Andor and was like, oh, I can make a really cool in-depth story that's not all space wizards and bounty hunter westerns, and instead we'll make this interesting look at a doctor trying to rehabilitate.
Yeah, because I was like, why didn't they just make this like a complete episode?
Yeah,
like why throw Mando and Bo-Katan in the beginning and then again at the end? And I'm like, why?
Oh man, yeah, it's a little weird. I feel like one thing I've been watching along with all the like Mandalorian stuff, and they were talking about how all of these Star Wars shows are just to justify how Emperor Palpatine came back in the last Star Wars. So like he that doctor, I feel like, is there to help get us closer to that step.
Maybe. I did enjoy that storyline, and I agree with you. Like this probably would have been, if they wanted to continue with Andor, they could have actually put that there, like in the next season or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a weird mix. I'm like, I thought I was watching Mando, but then suddenly I'm just seeing this weird thing of whether I should trust the former people who were actively destroying people, like genocide and stuff.
Was that the one that ended with him in on the table?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That was like, again, like what you're saying. It's like, kids are watching this, and then you get to the scene where he's getting like brainwashed.
He's getting not brainwashed. He's getting lobotomized. That's just space lobotomy there. And it was so funny when like he was like, I've actually used this before, and the alien guy's like, it's okay, I've had it myself, and it was fine. And I'm like, you were lobotomized.
Yeah.
And you recommend it kind of made me like I had like the entire time I was like watching this, especially this scene was like, okay, I'm getting Americans getting the Nazi people back to work for them vibes, and I hate it.
Yes, it's 100% that.
It's 100%, and I was like, I know you're supposed to feel like empathy for these people, but these people killed a lot of other people, so no, you don't get my sympathy, honey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, even though he was like grunting and whimpering while getting hippopotamus, I was like, well, I mean, karma's a bitch, I guess.
Yeah. So you
But
haven't finished the show yet?
No, I haven't. Like I said,
Okay.
like I have been like passing out at 9 p.m. every night this week. So no, I haven't had the energy to continue watching, but I'm probably gonna continue watching it. I'm hoping it's gonna get better because I've actually like, apart from this interesting scenario, I felt like the first two episodes were a little bit lackluster.
Yeah, it ends really strong, but yeah, there's a couple episodes in the middle that you're kind of just like, all right, it's on, and I'm just watching it just to move us along. But yeah, it's tough to like go back to this again. Like we said, after Andor, it's really hard to like go back to something like this, and
Exactly.
they do redeem it a bit at the end. So like I liked how it ended. So I will say that.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, this is not something that I'm giving up on, so I'm definitely gonna finish it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think did I mention it last weekend that I went to see the Dungeons and Dragons movie?
I don't remember if you did or not. I don't think we've talked about it.
We haven't talked about it, I don't think.
No,
Did you like it?
I fucking loved it.
Wasn't it great?
It's amazing. It's so funny. Even people who haven't played or are not familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, they will enjoy the hell out of it.
Yes.
And I just, like, as a person who plays this, I loved like really looking into this, like the scenes, and just trying to decipher, okay, so did he roll a fail here, or did he roll a 20? and I kept like be like, oh, I know this spell. I know this spell. And
yes.
And with Chris Pine being in the Harpers, because they mentioned Waterdeep, and I'm like, hey, my character was actually in the Harpers too. She was a rogue, but she didn't explain it to everyone because she was actually in two factions, and that would be really dangerous for her to be in both factions.
Oh, you.
Yeah. This is just my indecisive ass.
Yeah.
Putting it into the character.
Yeah. No, it was great.
And it was really great. And I love the chemistry with all the characters. Hugh Grant was amazing. I loved him in this. And you could just see that he loved being this goofy.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
He has such a fun time being this character. I'm like, please put him in more of this. He's gonna love this. Like, Stop casting him as this bumbly British romance lead. Like, come on, he's so over that. Just put him in this goofy fantasy films, and he's gonna blossom.
Oh, totally.
Hey, it was really funny to see his cameo in Glass Onion, though.
Yes. And did you see, like, when reporters were asking, and he was like, I mean, I'm married to James Bond. Of course I'm gonna be in this movie.
Yeah.
I love that. And also a little bit about the Dungeons and Dragons movie, because I learned this after I watched it. Do you remember the scene where the paladin is walking away on the beach?
Yes.
Did you know that the actor didn't hear the director say cut? So he just kept on walking.
Oh my god.
And Chris Pine ad-libbed the entire scene.
Oh my god, that's amazing. That is hilarious, because that was so fun.
Yeah, it was an awesome scene. It was just it fits so well with the characters, especially with Chris Pine. He's like, oh, so he's just walking away. Okay. Okay, so I guess we're gonna keep going then. And like the director literally had to scream like, cut! And then he's like, oh, done. I just loved everything about this. It was so funny. I'm really hoping for a cinematic universe with this.
Yes. Oh, you need to read. They came out before the movie came out. 2 prequels.
I know. I saw that, the books.
Yes. So I read Honor Among Thieves. I think that, or is that the name of the movie? I can't remember what the book is. Road to Neverwinter, I think, is the book.
Okay.
It's so much fun because it gives you they give you a little hint of how they all met, at the beginning of the movie, but the book kind of gives you more detail on what that story is and everything. And the book was a blast too. So it was fun to see the movie and see them kind of give you some of that stuff in there. But yes. But I had a blast.
I had a blast also. It's just also really nice to see the actors actually, to prepare for the movie, they all played Dungeons and Dragons together.
Yeah.
It's they all had the character sheets, and they okay, so we're gonna do a little one shot, and I'm like, yes. Then you know how fucking chaotic this can be. And what else? The last thing that I'm actually I'm going through my Kindle and trying to finish. I can't say as many books as I want, but as many books as I have time for and I have energy for.
Yeah.
And I'm currently reading An Army of Skin by Morgan Tanner, I think his name is. Okay. And it's an interesting little story. It's about a guy who is on a path of vengeance against this one doctor, general physician, who wouldn't help his ailing mother. She had a blinding headache, and he'd only prescribed her a couple of painkillers, but then it turned out she had a tumor. And there was nothing they could have done, and she died. And so he feels like it was the doctor's fault that they couldn't save her. So he goes on this path of vengeance by becoming a serial killer.
Oh, totally. Yeah, makes sense.
So yeah, he decides to target a lot of sex workers and kills them. And he has this textbook that he, for some reason, I haven't got this far in the story, for some reason got from the doctor himself, from the physician himself, that displays these kind of weird, gory, macabre thing on how to basically dissect people and make it into art. I don't know.
Kind of like Hannibal?
Almost. Maybe he got the inspiration from Clive Barker. I don't know. But we definitely see it through the character that he's he's mentally unstable. He's always taking these mind-numbing pills to calm his mind or something like that. But he has already finished killing one person and has flayed her. And he has the entire skin, which I would think is probably a bit of a fucking feat if you can have an entire skin and just, I don't know, just intact, an entire body of skin.
It's kind of impressive to think about.
Yeah. Especially for a guy who knows nothing about how to do this.
Yeah.
And is just doing it through a textbook. He did not have
an entire skin intact.
No.
Am I a weird one? I have the whole body intact, all the skin. You call me weird?
Maybe. I mean, that's you have a hard time taking off gloves. How do you slap off a skin?
And also trying to remove it from the face is gonna be fucking difficult, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be all slippery. There's if you miscut, it might rip.
Yeah. So he doesn't go into detail if it but he managed to do it really well. And somehow we kind of get into how his mind seems to be deteriorating because the skins start talking to him.
Okay.
And apparently is doing the job of killing for him.
It's a floppy skin flopping around, just
floating
people up.
Floating.
Floating.
Yeah.
So you fill it up
skin.
with helium?
Don't know. So I'm only like 30% into the book, and it's a novella. So I am intrigued to see how this will turn out. It is written in the first person, which these are how I write my books, which I like. But there's one thing that I don't really like is when they break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
It can't be a hit and miss. You have to be able to do it like in a good way, like with you, for example, with Carolyn Kapnis. She does it really well. But I think it's a kind of a miss here, at least from the examples I've gotten so far. And
is Katniss breaking the fourth wall on you technically?
Not really technically, but it's like sometimes I feel like Joe is speaking to you like directly in some cases.
Yeah. It's a hard way to describe Yu's like narration because like it's first person, but it feels like it's second person.
Yes.
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah. Anyway, go on. Just wanted
but he like I think she kind of makes you feel that immersed that you don't really find it distracting. But in this case, I find it a little bit distracting when he's like, "Yeah, well, I didn't know. Like, you should know I didn't know. I'm not good at this." And I'm like, "No, I don't. That's why I'm here to find out."
That's what I'm here to find out.
So yeah, it's only 30% in, and I am interested to know like what the hell is going on. Like, is it all in his head, or is there something more supernatural at stake, and something that has to do with the doctor, I guess. But there's one other thing, and this is not me because I don't take these medication, but he takes a lot of those fucking pills. And I'm not saying like take one. He's like, I think he takes like 10, and I'm like, dude, shouldn't you be dead by now? Like, wouldn't you? Like, these are like mind altering or mind numbing pills. I mean, they have a hard shit in them. I guess the recommended dosage would probably be 1. I don't know, but taking like 10 would kill you, overdose you. I don't know. It just feels weird that he's always doing that like on the hour.
Yeah.
And like especially here, like in where I'm stopping right now, it's like I want to be alert. I don't want the mind-numbing pills to like numbing me down too much. So I only took 1, and I'm like, which you should be doing.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Why have 1 when you can have 10?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the dosage is like a Japanese when they take us so little that they don't feel anything. So it might be that. I'm not even kidding. When I was in Japan, I wanted to take like a painkiller, like that had like 500 milligrams of like paracetamol. They didn't even have that. It had like 100 milligrams, and I'm like, this is not gonna kill my headache, bitches. I was like, and I don't want to take 5 to make it go away.
Yeah.
So my advice, if you're gonna go to Asia and you're gonna stay there for a little while, take your own medication from home. Because the Japanese stuff ain't gonna do shit for you. I saw Tylenol there, and I was like, okay, I at least recognized that. And it had such a low dosage. I'm like, yeah, this is for kids.
Amazing.
Oh
Yeah.
boy. But that book sounds wild.
I mean, it's definitely gonna end up being more wild at the end. So I am excited. I'm gonna try to see if I can finish it tonight, because I'm just gonna lay back this weekend and just try to get as much reading as I can.
There you go. That's a good plan.
Yeah. Is it time for us to go over our favorite stories?
I think so.
All right. Well, we didn't really work out a kind of form for us to discuss, but I would really just like to point attention to 2 stories that I think about on the daily.
Now, are these ones we've covered or just in general?
I think we covered these.
Perfect. I kind of did a mix.
So one of the I think my personal opinion, my all-time favorite horror short story is what is it? Is it Each Thing I Show You Is a Piece of My Death by Gamma Files?
Yes.
Yeah, each thing I show you is a piece of my death. That story, fuck. Like, I think about the decomposition scene in that story more often than I probably should. But like,
that's fair.
It's pretty much. I think we covered this story. Did we, Matt?
I was trying to remember. We might have.
I could have sworn we did. If we didn't, it's free to read online. It is a great story. It is about. It's kind of like reading a found footage movie. Essentially, you're going through document files in epistolary fashion. Epistolary fashion. But the main thing is, there is a man who is just appearing in film, like walking in film. Sometimes you'll see a movie and this just naked guy shows up in the scene and starts waving at the camera or staring at the camera, and then you can see the same movie again and that guy will never appear. So people begin just digging into finding out what causes this phenomena. And I want to say it reminds me a little bit like The Ring, where it's more like this virus that's kind of being spread around through film reels and stuff.
Yeah.
And it is a bleak, horrifying short story. It really runs the gamut. Like,
we did cover it, by the way. Sorry,
I thought we did.
I had to look through the old archives.
I could have sworn we covered it, but I know you've read this one, Matt, right?
Yes.
What are your thoughts of this one?
I am trying to remember. I remember liking it. I don't remember enough about it to say anything.
Fair enough.
Oh, terrible.
So didn't leave that much of an impression. I'm sorry, Gemma. This is Matt's. This is Matt's fault. I personally love this story a lot. I don't want to go too much into detail because I really want our audience to kind of read it for themselves if they haven't. The story itself is very straightforward. You're following different characters as they're going through this investigation to find out what's causing this strange man to appear in movies. And there's a scene that's kind of near the climax where someone is found the videotape, and the videotape just has his character walk in front of the camera. He looks like it's the 1920s or 1930s, like how he's dressed. He just takes off all his clothes, stands in front of the camera nude, takes a razor blade, sits down in a chair, slits his throat, and bleeds out. And the text just describes how his body decomposes.
I do remember that.
The camera keeps on filming. The camera doesn't stop filming. And the camera films the body as it decomposes. And it's all described in the story. And it's just so cold and so chilling. And it really makes an impression.
Yes. That does sound familiar.
But for real, it's really, I love that story so much. I could go on more, but I'll just do two more and then I can pass it over to Matt. But another one of my favorites that we read for this podcast, which might come as a surprise to us, but I think about this more often than I thought I would, and that is Moonfellows by Danger Slater.
Yes.
I think just the aspect of Moonfellows, we have our character watching his wife from a distance live a whole life without him really just has this. It makes me feel a kind of way.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and we had kind of talked about that because for listeners, we do have that episode and we had Danger Slater on it. That was like a year ago, I would say. It's funny because having read a number of his stuff, he's got a lot of like humor. There, it's all of his stuff is kind of laden with that humor, but there's like an underlying kind of sadness in a lot of it, and that was exactly what you're saying with like Moonfellows, is that it like lots of silly stuff is in there. The presidents are all silly, and the concept of them being on the moon, and his whole goal of just having to dig with a shovel. It's all very funny, but like you said, there's like this idea of him watching his wife, like, I think she gets remarried, and like watching his kid grow up and all this stuff. It's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of heartbreaking when you think about it.
And it's funny because it's just before that part, the novel's just hilarious.
Yeah.
It's funny. It's very very investing. Like you're into it, you're laughing, it's a good time. And then that hits and you're like, oh, my heart. Why would you do this to me? I thought this was a funny story.
Yeah.
This is a funny story. I want to laugh. I don't want to cry, right? So, yeah. But I think like that story, just the way he balances his emotions, I really just think about that story a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
And the last one is also I was between talking of, we've covered both these stories in the podcast, but I was between talking about Styx, by Carl Wagner, which I think Styx is the greatest horror short story ever written.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I feel like I've talked about Styx a lot, but one story that I was introduced to because of this podcast that I still think about a lot too is The Nightwire. We had a Todd Kiesling on for that one.
I think that was one I missed, so I don't remember much on that one.
That one's wild. It takes place in like the 1920s or 1930s, and it's about like back then everything was all like they had this thing called the Nightwire, where people were getting Morse code from news, telling them information all over the world, and the Nightwire would be the person who's staying up all night listening to all this news and kind of writing the footage down. Or writing the news down. And while he's doing this, he has a partner. And both guys are just kind of going through their news, and they come across the news of this town. I'm just trying to get the name of the town real quick. But they get news of the strange town. I think it's called Shebico. Xebico. And in this town, there's a strange fog that's engulfing the town. And the fog is expanding. And whoever is inside the fog, they're not leaving this fog. And so one of the people is just covering this strange town. The other guy is trying to find out what this town is. He can't even find it in any atlases. He can't find it anywhere. Like, no one knows where this town is. No one knows what's happening. No one knows this thing. And it's just this big era of mystery around it. And the end of the story, he goes back to the guy who is typing, and the person's dead. But his fingers are still typing. Nice. As he continues to hear the news come in. And it just kind of ends like in that space, which is kind of like a perfect 1920s, 1930s weird fiction story. But like the era of mystery around the story just makes me think about it a lot. And I appreciate having Todd come on and introduce that story to us, because it really is a fantastic weird fiction story. And if you're looking to get into weird fiction from the 20s and 30s that isn't H.P. Lovecraft,
Yeah.
I think this is better than anything H.P. Lovecraft's ever written.
Nice.
And I think it's the perfect weird fiction story. And
I love it.
But I'd say those are big three for me. There's a couple I'd like to shout out. Like, we all know we love our boy John Paget. I think 26 Steps of Ventriloquism is one of the greatest stories ever written. What about you? What are some picks for you?
Oh man. All right. So like, yeah, it's crazy to think we've done this for 150 episodes. It's like I wouldn't have thought we would have lasted this long. It's like my patience sometimes, like I get distracted easily. So this is good. It's a good anchor for my week. So like, it's interesting. I was looking back through everything we had covered and just trying to think of things that really stuck out and like that I still sort of talk about or think about, or affected me in some way or made me want to read all their work. And I think the first one for me that really sticks out was David Peake's Eyes in the Dust, which we talked a while back about. And that one's just, after reading that short, it's not like, well, it's probably just like a novelette. It's like 40 pages or something like that. I was just hooked in this concept, this story, and just his style. He's very, very bleak person. And he has this sort of cosmic look at things. So like, his stuff very much falls in the realm of like, Laird Barron and John Langan and even Ligotti and Paget to an extent. But he's definitely got his own look and twist at things. And I think Eyes in the Dust is like this perfect example of this kind of working class, almost cosmic story where it's people working, digging in some land somewhere. I can't remember now off the top of my head where they were at, but it's some Eastern European place because they blindfold the main character, and just the idea of like finding something and how this affects the land around it with the bugs and the workers, and then eventually our narrator, he gets affected by this thing. But just like that story, I think I read it like 2 times before the podcast recording, and then I read it again, and then I picked out the short story collection which had it, so I read that again, and then I've been picking up his other work just because he's got such a thing that he does, and I just can't get over that style and that look at things. So that was definitely
David Peake stuff. David Peake is incredible.
Yeah, he's somebody that, I mean, you're not going to find him on Twitter. I don't think he's on Facebook. Maybe he is. I haven't looked. But he's just in his own world, just doing his thing, putting his books out. Not that he's got a lot, but he's putting out what he wants and when he wants. And he just lets it sit there, which is, I think, kind of cool. He shows that you can do that. He might not be well known, but I think he's known for the people who like that sort of thing. So that's definitely one that we've covered before. One sort of recent was Mothwoman, and I guess that even takes us through the whole show because I feel like it was
great.
Yeah, the show that really got me introduced to Nicole Cushing, because I think when we had Paget, I think we had Paget on when we talked about her Half Freaks, but maybe we didn't. Maybe we just got it from him. And anyway, that was my okay, good. That was my kind of introduction to Nicole Cushing, and then again, just like David Peake, I just kind of
I'm a working class man.
Yeah, became obsessed. And so, like we had her on first to talk about a Poe story, which is very cool, but like that's not kind of what this show is about, and this episode, I should say, is about. So I'm pointing more to her work, which was Mothwoman, which was a very great, awesome look at COVID and just the Trump administration and just kind of mental illness and everything like that. And it's just, again, what this, like, even going beyond like favorite episodes or favorite short stories, this is, I think, one cool thing about us doing this show is the introduction. I mean, you, Rich, and you, LeMay, and even when we had Mike on, like would introduce me to a lot of new things, and that's the one thing I really appreciate about what we've done, because in turn that gets me hooked to new authors and writers, and gets me reading all their stuff. And so it was definitely Talking Half Freaks that got me way into Nicole Cushing and reading her stuff, which in turn got me into a lot of absurd German expressionist writers from 1600s. So like it all because of this. And so anyway, Moth Woman was a really cool one. You know, like I was trying to think of other stories maybe that we've covered, and I guess I could flip through and try to find them, the ones that I really liked. I mean, like we talked The Human Chair, which was like a really fun kind of weird Chinese Poe, I think it was, story, and that was fun. But I'm gonna kind of skip off of the podcast stuff, because I did make a little list of different things I really liked that I think people should take a peek at, and I won't go into too many details on all of these, just calling them out. Betty Rocksteady, I've loved her work from the beginning, and I think her short story collection, In Dreams We Rot, is amazing. Sorry, I got hiccups, and it's really cramping my style. But she has one.
Off of In Dreams We Rot, Betty Rocksteady, her novella, what's it called?
Which one?
Not Soft Places. The Withering Skies.
Yes.
Amazing novella.
Yes. That one is, I love that. But I feel like actually maybe this will be a podcast, because didn't we cover Dreams We Rot? Maybe we didn't. Maybe I just brought it up. But
we covered I think we covered a story from Dreams We Rot.
Yeah.
But not the whole collection.
Yeah. So hey, look at that. I pull us back. But Elephants That Aren't is one of her short stories. It's a really good one.
Oh, that's a great one.
And if you follow her, I'm mostly on Facebook, but I think she's slowly getting back onto Twitter. She's really big into old-timey cartoons, and Elephants That Aren't kind of takes that idea and really expands on it, and I really enjoyed that. You know, Jonathan Rabb, I'm a huge fan of his. I've talked about him on the show quite a bit, but his short story collection, Secret Goatman Spook Show, all of it's amazing, but he's got one, To Oppose Evil is to Live, which is about a video game called Crypt of Blood that he made up that actually kind of plays into a lot of his other stuff. And it's like this kind of plays into like a Hammer horror vampire thing, which he's got a vampire novel coming out soon. And so this one plays on a video game based on that story, or based on that fake movie. And it's just this really interesting kind of, you know, we talked about Gemophiles and found footage. He plays around a lot, I would say, in the found footage world, but maybe like a step kind of past that to commenting on fake things. And so this is a commentary on fake things about a video game, and it takes you through that.
We got to get you to Necronomicon, Matt.
Why?
John Rabb is always there.
Oh, that'd be so cool. We like have that would be awesome. I'd love to meet him, just because we have a lot in common. So it would be really cool to see. Another one that kind of follows along that same line, Oren Gray. He's a great short story writer, and you know, he's got 4 or 5 or 6 collections out. Definitely read his. One that just comes to mind is Dr. Pitt's Menagerie, which is about a guy that used to make costumes and stop motion and all this stuff for horror movies back in the day, and he opened up a little like museum in the mall, and it's really cool. And finally, Yoko Ogawa's A Revenge. This one I see pop up every once in a while. This is, I think, came out in the 80s, maybe 90s. She wrote, this is a short story collection, but all the short stories are interconnected, and they're all fabulous. And it's fascinating how she connects them, because it could be a really minor side character or event in one story, and it gets expanded upon the next story.
I need to revisit Revenge.
Yeah, definitely. You should.
Remember feeling kind of lukewarm about it when I first read it, but maybe I could appreciate it a bit more now.
Yeah, like, you know, it's all very subtle the way she does it, and it's like horror a tangential horror stuff. So not a lot of it's horror. It's just more about kind of people and Japan and everything like that. But all the stories have some sort of like element that can kind of be spooky. So that was a good one. So I think like, yeah, there's so many more. It was like sitting here before the show and I was like, damn, I should have spent all week researching to come up with stuff. But
me too. Like I had a few I knew I was going to talk about, and I was like, I really should take it some more time.
Yeah. So it was like, this was a fast list, I guess, of things that really stuck out. I mean, besides things that I've talked about in the past, but these are big ones that stuck out with me currently. So,
LeMay, what about some stuff for you?
There are a couple of stories that I still think about that I just really, really, really like. The first one is my first introduction to R.A. Busby's works, which is called Holes.
okay.
And I do remember that when I got on your show, I think for the first time when we discussed Dear Laura, I remember telling you guys about this story.
Yes.
It was published in Candice's Press, I think Graveyard Smash, like Women of Horror anthology. And it's about this woman who suffers from trypophobia, that is just severe fear of holes, just any kind. And she tries to go like through exposure therapy with her therapist, but when she sees a close-up of a strawberry, she just almost flips out, which is understandable for fear.
Yeah.
And so she decides just to try to deal with it on her own. And then this weird pandemic happens, and everyone is supposed to isolate. And she decides to do that too. But it starts to really have its toll on her, being in this isolation, not talking to anyone about this, and her fear of trypophobia just gets the better of her, and she just ends up plugging every kind of hole she finds in her house. And when she thinks that that's enough, her brain says, no, there are more holes that needs to be plugged. And she decides to do that internally.
Oh, geez.
Oh boy.
And just reading the description, like the event, like you were like, as you're reading, you're like, no, this is not good. You need to get out, boo. And then that scene when she is sitting in the bathtub using industrial adhesive.
God.
And just, yeah, it was really hard to read, but it was done so well that you felt the dread just clutching your heart. And I still think about that every time I see something that has holes in it. I'm always reminded of that story.
That's amazing.
Not particularly about strawberries, because I love strawberries and I eat them almost every day. But like especially with a lotus root.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, every time I see that, I'm like, that story. Oh yeah, that story. That story. I need to tell more people about that story. So I just got her latest book on my Kindle, and once I finished An Army of Skin, I'm gonna dive into that one, Corporate Body, which is supposed to be a full of body horror.
Nice.
Hopefully similar to this one. So I'm really excited to try it. Another one is also one of my favorite, by one of my favorite authors, Haley Piper, which we also covered on the show.
Oh, I think I know this one.
Yes, the recitation of the first feeding.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is such a good story. It's so good. Just it's not. I didn't find me deeply unsettling, but I do like how the horror is kind of mixed with whimsy.
Yes.
And you just feel also how influenced by Clive Barker and the Hellraiser and with the Cenobites. It's just all mixed beautifully into the story. And it's just how also this is just a story of a beautiful transformation.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just so good. It's just especially when she comes to like when Alex just like realizes like, oh no, this is not who I am. And the only reason for me and the only thing for me to do is to go to that place where the culinary court is and eat memories or just eat anything and just like you ate a part of me and I want it back to be able to become who I am.
Yes.
And it's just so good.
So good.
This is a story that I always comes to my head as well. It's like, this story is so good.
No, I totally dig that for sure.
There's also another story. It's not a short story, but it's it's a part novelette or novella. I'm not sure, but it's Eric LaRocca's Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke.
Oh yeah.
That is one fucked up story.
Yeah.
That's a great story, though.
It is so good. This is why it also lives like rent free in my head. I just remember like I got the arc from Eric, and I was just reading it in my like on my computer, and I was supposed to go to work the next day, and I was like, I'm sorry, I have to finish this because this is bonkers. And just every single page, like when you're reading it, because it's such an interesting way of like epistolary horror, in which this like the entire story is revolved through both the chat room and emails, which I thought the format was really great. But just the depravity that just unfolds with each page. This might become just the salamander episode, because that scene with the salamander in that fucking book was horrifying. Yes, oh god. It was just like, what the fuck? But at the same time, what really just got to me is this I can definitely see this like in a true crime thing.
Yeah.
Like I can definitely picture this happening and just watching it in like a docuseries on Netflix. It's like it's like it could be an episode of My Lover, My Killer. And it's just and like a lot of people have been like advertising, you can't really look at an apple peeler the same way again.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Like ever again. Like at first I had to like actually Google like what because for me as an Icelander, or basically as people as usual people from Scandinavia, we don't peel our apples. Or when we do, we just use a cheese slicer.
Okay.
Or a potato peeler.
Yeah.
So seeing this gadget, I was like, oh, boy, that's this a whole other torture thing here. And I just wanted to call Italy, like, are you okay? Like, why? Why would you have this for fruit? So yeah, I definitely, and it was like it wasn't my first introduction with Eric LaRocca's stories. I had like beta read some of his short stories that eventually have now been published in his short story collections. So, but this story kind of like cemented, like, damn, this guy can write, and it can be fucked up shit. Like it's lyrical fucked up shit.
That's amazing.
So I am excited to try to read the rest of his books. I haven't gotten to it yet because, there's so many good books out there.
Right.
I have an arc of everything the darkness eats, just like waiting for me to get to it.
Oh. I think it's gonna be awesome.
I think so too.
I got an email that from bookshop.org that was like, hey, there's free shipping now. And I'm like, oh, I'm gonna use that shit. And I had like 4 books in my cart, like ready to go. And then it's like, oh, wait, it's just for America? Fuck you.
America #1.
Fucking hate this. Like, why? Why you gotta be mean to me?
Oh my gosh.
So good.
Yeah.
I remember Eric LaRocca, like we were one of the first podcasts they ever came on when they were like getting into the genre. So it's been fun to kind of see them when they were new and then see them explode.
Yes. I agree. And it's the same with Haley.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think Haley and Matt Wilderson are the 2 guests we've had the most.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I would like to think that they do enjoy coming on our show.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they do.
Hopefully.
Matt has told me he's happy to guest host anytime we want him to.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
So I like to think we have a good rapport with the guests that we have on the podcast.
I hope so.
Mm-hmm.
And we have our month for May coming up, which you got to get some stories put together for May. I do know Robert Piatone has chosen a Nathan Ballingrud story for us to do.
Nice.
Okay, that's going to be a first for me.
Oh, get ready.
Get ready. It's in his collection, North American Lake Monsters.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people talk about that book.
Oh, it's a great book. Nathan Ballingrud is one of the best. Like, his stuff's just unlike anything else out there.
Yeah.
LeMay, where can listeners get in touch with you?
They can get in touch with me on Twitter at @VitlemayS.
And Matt, what about you?
Yeah, I'm still on that Twitter thing at BrandenburgDM.
I'm on Twitter until it sinks at Rudy53088. Be sure to give Abyss a follow with Add to Staring. And thank you a lot for spending these 150 episodes with us.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you.
I don't think we've been around this long.
It's wild to especially just now looking back through all the archives and just be like, man, we've been going a long time. And actually, I'm going to have to correct you because of going through the archives. I think Chad Lutsky is up there. He's been on 3 times at least.
Oh, Chad Lutsky's there.
Yeah. And then I feel like we've had John Padgett on at least twice. Like we've had a number of people on twice. I was trying to think if we had Taft on multiple times.
We had Taft on, I think we had him on once.
Okay. But it was just because
Taft was our first guest.
Yes. So long ago. So yeah. Good times. But yeah, 150, man. We made it.
And hopefully we have 150 more. We'll see how those But this is Richard Gerlach saying keep staring.